Welcome to another show of the Linity show. Today we have Harsha Baid with us. Harsha, क्या आप please हमारे सारे जितने भी audiences को आप introduce कर सकते हैं अपने आप को?
Yeah, so I'm Harsha and I'm from Guwahati, Assam, a psychologist, and currently I'm like doing my private practice and working with Linity.
All right, that sounds like a good start. And before we go ahead, I really have to ask you, Harsha, how did you get started in the therapy space? Like, when you were first thinking about choosing a career, choosing, a subject to pursue. So, what was your mindset at that time? You opted for psychology?
Okay, so I think it goes back to my childhood again. So I'm from Guwahati, Assam, and it's not a very big city. And during my childhood, I faced some problems, as in, like, I used to cry a lot, and everybody, used to call me row through. That's something like people who cry a lot have been, tagged. So I was the girl in the school who was tagged like that. And then maybe, I didn't have the insight because I was so small that it is okay. And there are some like emotional problems that I'm undergoing, but it became a traumatic experience for me. And I feel if people even knew, like, as people know medical, like first aid, if they knew psychological first aid, somebody in the school, any system or processes, if they were in place, they would have sort of understood what the child is going through. And my own behavior, sort of, crying too much, led me to sort of enter the space where, and I was not good in maths or science. And additionally, I was weak in academics as well. So I feel even then, nobody sort of tried understanding, what could be the reason. And that is how, like, in my 12th, I sort of chose to study psychology. And that's how entered into the therapy space.
Awesome. And जिस तरीके से आपने therapy में enter किया, psychology में enter किया, did it help you understand your own childhood कहीं ना कहीं?
Yeah, it did help me understand my childhood, and it did help me empathize with people who were my classmates, because I later in life I understood even they didn't understand what they were doing. So it just helped me understand myself and the other as well, the empathy and the place, and how, psychology has so much intersections with the society, and you cannot explain an individual without the functioning in these spaces.
That is completely true. And when you were starting out, क्या आपके कुछ डर थे while you were starting out as like a therapist, like आपका पहला session? Can you recount that a little bit? What were your fears initially?
Yeah, so initially I was very fearful because psychology involves humans. And I have heard so many people who have not had good experience because, there are quack therapists out there, and people have just been disappointed. So I felt like it's a huge responsibility. And because of the fear to sort of, never do any harm to anyone, after my master's, till 4 5 months, I was not even practicing. And then it became like 1 month more, and I was still scared. And then is when I sort of started supervision, but बहुत ज़्यादा like डर था. And I couldn't locate what those fears were, but it was just like general key. I need not like harm another person, or nothing should happen, that makes the other person more distressed because of me. But supervision really helped that ways. And initially, I was in supervision without seeing clients, so as to understand myself and my fears. And then I started seeing clients, and with the supervision, it helped.
All right. So you talked about supervision. Can you explain to our audience what do you mean by supervision for those of them who may not know?
Yeah, so supervision is basically having like a guide or a mentor who is sort of seeing your object, your practice, with another objective lens. So there is one objective lens that you apply, and still, as you're starting out, there might be some inhibitions about the self. And when clients come with different issues, sort of, it might happen that you do not have maybe that nuanced understanding, and you need certain polishing of skills and techniques that ways all throughout the process of therapy. So that is what supervision is, where the guide or the mentor sort of, when you are not so much aligned, they sort of realign you again to the space and work on those fears, anxieties in the process, starting from, the consult to the assessment and intervention. They sort of guide you.
Right. And you mentioned techniques, which brings me to my next question. What are your favorite techniques, like the techniques you like to use with your clients?
Mm. So the techniques, there's no like technique that I can point out, because I take a eclectic approach. So my techniques are sort of tailor based to the individuals, and how I see it is more in terms of creativity. I sort of see that my techniques are creative and different. And also, what allows me to decide my techniques is the individual, where the individual is sort of placed. If the individual prefer the more structured way of working, then, my interventions and techniques become more in like structured that ways. If the person is more flexible and likes to try out more novel things in terms of art interventions, so I go ahead with that. So then it depends on the individual.
Awesome. And you mentioned the different things about your client as well. Like you really, really tailor your therapy to them. Can you tell us a little bit about what your clientele looks like? So, like, if somebody's watching this video, they may have the question, "Well, is Harsha for me?" Well, I know that as psychologists, we're trained to treat a whole variety of people, but still, what does your primary demographic look like?
So I've seen clients starting from sort of 14 years to 60 years. And so that range is there. But then more so it is like adults and adolescents out there who I see. And typically the issues that I also see is like grief, trauma related concerns, anxiety, sleep, and a lot of like self-esteem, confidence issues that come up. Some have come up with anxieties about career. So yeah, this is the breadth sort of
Right.
that I see.
And I've been seeing like a rise in self-esteem issues quite a lot. Do you have any advice for our viewers who may be watching this, who may not have the resources to take up therapy right now, but if there's something they can do about their self-esteem, for example, are there any practices that they can employ, or some thought practices, or pen and paper ke saath, or anything that they can do at home?
Yeah. So one thing that I would like to, sort of say to the viewers out there is how we conceptualize work. So work we generally see in terms of what we are doing. Either, we are going to school, we are going to college, or, we are working with a certain organization. But I think what can bring a huge change to the self-esteem is if we consider work in terms of vocation. Now, vocation is the things that the people are doing even in their day-to-day life. So generally, a question asked in the therapy is also how does their day look like? And it is generally seen that there are few activities that people are doing for their self. So sort of reflecting what who they are as individuals, and then working on vocation. Because if you have your morning schedule in place, at least and I do not say that you need to follow it 7 days hardcore, but at least some thinking, and working on it continuously, even if it is 3 or 4 days a week to sort of start it. So I think vocation and a switch to that can really help.
Yeah, we've seen routines really help out a person's life, and I think the biggest mistake that people can make right now is to set up a routine that is bound to fail by making it way too strict.
Yeah.
Because हम लोग सुबह सुबह उठते एकदम से plan बनाते हैं 4:30 a.m. पे उठेंगे, which is very unrealistic considering that we're waking up at 10 a.m. or something.
Yeah, I really agree to that because it was unrealistic goals at the end of the day that do not let them to achieve it. And then again, there's a spiraling back and sort of relapse, and they feel that they are not capable. So I would also say to have a mental health check-in with yourself. Unfortunately, we do not have mental health clinics where we can just sort of walk in the road as a regular practice. We can check with ourselves and how we are feeling and what is it that you require at the moment. And apart from work or college or daily routine, are there any hobbies that in general the person enjoys or defines themselves, and to sort of stick with it with definitely the realistic goals that you mentioned.
Right, Harsha. And we also see a lot of people who say that, well, therapy बहुत expensive है, it's too overpriced. So do you have something to say to those people as well? Not perhaps in like a negative sense, but to just explain to them why therapy is priced at the price point it is priced.
Yeah, so I know that this narrative is ever present in therapy, that it's very expensive. But again, the common example that I would give, come back to it, even if you don't, if you have to attend to it, right? And that is the sort of emergency that the mental health crisis. I think that aptness should be there. Even it's an investment yourself. Generally, the client is there are some who don't have any problems, and nowadays I feel that has also become a problem for that, where they say that we do not have a bad past, or nothing wrong with us, but we just want to understand ourselves. So therapy spectrum much that people, even without any concerns, are sort of availing it to understand themselves better. So I feel it's the dire need, and it'll help you function sort of better. So I think deferring therapy because of money becomes a little. I know it's challenging for people from the other socioeconomic end, but I would highly recommend, if you feel you have the resources, it is an investment to yourself.
Yeah, I always tell it specifically when it's somebody who is from an economics background. I always say it's one of the top five high ROI things you're gonna do, because the return on investment is just way too much. It's definitely
Yeah.
like seeing life better, prioritizing life better, and that really makes a huge difference in your happiness levels. And of
Yeah.
course, Harsha, I would be asking you the final question of the day, and that is there something you would like for your clientele to know about you before they come to you?
Um, I think just one catch line I would like to say for the clientele, which is used in like Bollywood a lot, which is Mehuna. I've been like seeing people, they don't have anyone to listen to. And even listening, I feel is so important that ways. And I feel like that ways Mehuna and the community Linity is there for you all. If you have any issues, and if even 1% it clicks to you that you want someone, then do like think of us and like come to us, talk, because once you've been in therapy, you'll understand it better, the importance of it. So that's the message. It is a non-judgmental space. So that's it, Mehuna, is what I need to say to people.
Thank you so much for being on this show, Harsha. Please take very good care of yourself. You've been an amazing guest.